I thank all the witnesses for being here today. I now recognize Secretary Noem for 5 minutes to summarize her opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Ranking Member, for holding this hearing today and inviting me to be a part of it. I'm looking forward to discussing the worldwide threats that this country faces and the work that President Trump and his administration does each and every day to make America safe again. I'm very privileged and honored today to have my family with me. I'd like to introduce them to you.
Disruptions of congressional business is a violation of law, is a criminal offense under federal law. Audience members are advised to take their seats and maintain order. The chairman may now ask Capitol Police to remove and arrest the persons creating the disturbance. Secretary may continue.
Chairman, I'll continue. Today with me, I have my husband, Brian, who's with me, and also two of my children. My oldest daughter, Cassidy, and her husband, Kyle, are sitting here in the front row. And then my middle child, Kennedy, and her husband, Tanner, and that was my grandbaby, Noah, that was crying a little bit during the ranking member's comments. I don't think she agreed with him. I don't have my son with me or three of my grandchildren, but I'm very blessed that I have a wonderful family who is here and loves this country and is grateful for the work that we get to do as a family each and every day. We also have the blessing of having some angel families with us as well. They are here in the audience, and I'm so grateful for them for being willing to come here and be strong. It's hard to lose someone that you dearly love to illegal criminal activity, to people who never should have been in our country to begin with, and to lose those loved ones to drug overdoses that get perpetuated by the terrorist organizations that filter them into our country that President Trump works so hard to stop. So I'm grateful that they're here and that they are telling their story. Under President Biden, he closed the office in the Department of Homeland Security that serviced these families. He closed it because he didn't want them to speak. He didn't want them to have support or services. And President Trump reopened the Voices office so that they can get services, so they can hear about the cases of the individuals who killed their family members, and they can get the kind of help that they need to get through the tragic grief that they've experienced. So I want to thank them for being here and continue to pray for them. I want to thank you for the opportunity to be in front of you today to discuss the wide range of threats that the Department of Homeland Security is working on to protect us from here at home and also around the world. Just 2 weeks ago, the day before Thanksgiving, a terrorist shot two of our National Guardsmen in Washington, D.C., killing Sarah Beckstrom dead, and Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf is still fighting for his life. Fortunately, we've had some really good news about Andrew recently, and he had the opportunity to stand up and is a miracle, and we're so grateful for his family for being so strong. We continue to lift him up and pray he has a full recovery. The terrorist who shot them was an Afghan national who entered the United States under Operation Allies Welcome. The same week, we arrested another Afghan national who came in under the same program. He was planning to carry out a bombing in Fort Worth, Texas. And just last week, just miles away in Washington, D.C., we arrested another Afghan national who also came in under Operation Allies Welcome. That individual provided support to the Islamic State of Iraq and ISIS-K and weapons to his father, who was a commander of a militia group in Afghanistan. Those are only a handful of the challenges that we face and the threats that the Department of Homeland Security stands against every single day. Under President Trump's leadership, DHS is securing our borders, we're restoring the rule of law, and we're protecting the homeland. DHS is eradicating transnational organized crime and the stopping of deadly drugs from continuing to be funneled into our communities. We're ending illegal immigration, returning sanity back to our immigration system, and we're defending against cyber attacks against our critical infrastructure. We have sent a strong message to criminal illegal aliens that we will find you, we will arrest you, and we will deport you. Our message has resonated to over 1.5 million illegal aliens who have gone home on their own voluntarily. At the same time, we as a country are still dealing with the mistakes, the errors, and the willful disregard of the last administration. For 4 years, the Biden administration allowed millions of people to come into our country illegally. Millions more in our country were exploited and were brought in under parole programs without even basic vetting. As a result, we've seen terrorist attacks and heinous crimes committed against American children and families. by criminal, illegal aliens and violent perpetuators who should have never been allowed into this country in the first place. Transnational organized crime groups, including Mexico's Sinaloa, New Generation Jalisco, and other drug cartels, they cause chaos and they harm American interests. Our critical infrastructure faces a perilous landscape, largely driven by the impact of cyber attacks from bad actors and cyber criminals. American citizens are increasingly under threat from assassination attempts, intimidation tactics, and violence perpetuated by our adversaries, radical Islamic extremists and domestic extremists. These bad actors seek to undermine our public trust. They instill fear in Americans. They destabilize the institutions that safeguard our national security. The United States is preparing to host several major public events in 2026, most notably the FIFA World Cup and the celebration of the 250th anniversary of our Declaration of Independence. These large-scale events will be potential targets for a range of bad actors, and they come with an increased level of risk. DHS is using every tool and authority we have to ensure the safety of U.S. citizens and our visitors can enjoy next year's events. Radicalized domestic violent extremists and lone actors are a concern, and intentional targeting and murderous attacks on ICE agents in Texas, parishioners in Michigan, and 2 National Guardsmen here in Washington, D.C. are just some of the acts and the despicable examples that unfortunately are becoming too common. These threats underscore a clear need for security strategies that counter both large-scale and individualized attacks. We will remain alert in our mission to protect this country. We will protect our citizens. And as we enter into a historic year, America will be on the world stage. Our economy faces challenges from anti-competitive and illicit foreign economic practices that hurt the prosperity of all Americans. Those include economic espionage, intellectual property theft, and customs fraud. Illicit front companies often abuse the visa system to acquire sensitive U.S. equipment, information, and technology. Economic security is national security because a country that cannot feed itself, can't fuel itself, and cannot provide for itself cannot possibly defend itself. Under President Trump's leadership, we will continue to protect American interests and bolster American economic power and technological innovation to further growth and prosperity. The American people depend on the Department of Homeland Security to remain vigilant, agile, and responsive. We will never yield, we will never waver, and we will never back down. Thank you for the privilege to be with you today, Mr. Chairman, and I look forward to your continued support of the work that we do. I yield back.
Thank you, Secretary Noem. I now recognize Director Kent for 5 minutes to summarize his opening statement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, ranking members, and all the members of the House. I appreciate the opportunity to appear before you and discuss the threats posed to our nation. Despite the progress that we've made so far in the Trump administration, the threat posed by terrorists of all brands remains very high right now. We've made significant progress under President Trump's leadership. We have the jihadis of ISIS and al-Qaeda on the run in Iraq and Syria, thanks to the decisive action and the strikes that we've taken there recently since President Trump took office in January. However, we have a persistent threat from the individuals that were allowed into this country by the previous administration. The number one threat that we have right now, in my view, is the fact that we don't know who came into our country in the last 4 years of Biden's open borders. What we have identified is alarming, and I want to share that with you today. We just recently put out a warning of the heightened risk of terrorist attacks posed to the homeland by terrorists pretty much of all stripes, but in particular from ISIS and from al-Qaeda. NCTC has been crunching the numbers and going through the sheer volume of known and suspected terrorists that are in the country that came in under the Biden administration. So far, NCTC has identified around 18,000 known and suspected terrorists that the Biden administration let come into our country. These are individuals who under normal circumstances would never be allowed to enter our country because of their ties to jihadi groups like ISIS and al-Qaeda. Yet the Biden administration not only let them into the country, and in many cases facilitated their entry into the country, just like the entry of the Afghan terrorists who committed the terrorist attack here just before Thanksgiving, killing one of our National Guard members and wounding another. That Afghan was brought into the country as a group of over 100,000 Afghans who were brought here during the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. These individuals, despite what has been reported, were not vetted properly to come into the United States. The individual terrorist who committed the attack in DC, he was vetted to serve as a soldier in Afghanistan. The Biden administration essentially used his tactical level vetting as a ruse to bring him here and to bring him into our communities. And we've seen the tragic results of that. Now, that Afghan, that attacker, that terrorist is just one of 88,000. We've identified 2,000 of that group of 88,000 who have ties to terrorist organizations. We're working right now hand in hand with DHS and with the FBI to run down this 2,000, the Afghans who came here under Allies Welcome who have ties to terrorist organizations, and additionally the other 16,000 individuals with ties to terrorist organizations that Biden let into our country. That is probably the top terrorist threat that we face right now, and that doesn't include the individuals who came here illegally through the open border. That number, alarmingly, remains unknown at this time. We're trying to figure out who those individuals are as well. Also, adding to this elevated threat, we have ISIS and Al-Qaeda that have found sanctuary in places like Afghanistan and Syria due to the transitional nature of those governments, and also, again, in Iraq and some of the hinterlands of Iraq. And these terrorists are able to communicate and spread their propaganda and a lot of their know-how thanks to the proliferation of encrypted apps and also due to just the internet writ large. The new terrorist tactic that we're seeing more and more is moving away from very deliberate cellular attacks that we can infiltrate easily while they communicate into an inspirational methodology where you have key members putting out media and putting out how-to guides to reach out and to touch individuals inside the United States. We recently disrupted one of those attacks just before Halloween, thanks to the work of the FBI with support from really the entire U.S. intelligence community and the Joint Terrorism Task Force model in Michigan. That plot touched multiple states and had ties to ISIS inside Iraq and Syria. Another issue that we are addressing right now, thanks to the decisive leadership of President Trump, is the scourge of fentanyl, gang, and cartel violence. Under President Trump's leadership, we've designated these cartels and gangs as terrorist organizations, and we've done that rightfully so. These individuals, these terrorists, have killed hundreds of thousands of Americans, as these angel families will tell you firsthand. What President Trump has done by designating them as terrorists has allowed us to turn the tools of the intelligence community against them and predominantly watch list them as terrorists to prevent them from ever coming into America in the first place. To date, we've added about 35,000 of these narco-terrorists to our terrorist watch list, and we've stopped just around 6,000 of these terrorists from ever entering our